Alright, in this video I want to talk about finding the domain and range of a function if you're given a graph. And the basic idea to me is to find the domain from a graph. I'm going to think about all the points on the graph, and if I were to, I basically want to try to list out all the x values that get used. All the x values that get used, those are what we call, refer to as the domain of the function. To get the range, we simply list all the y values that ever get used on our graph. So finding domain and range from a graph, to me, is a terrible, it's when you don't have a formula is when I think, or when you only have a formula, that's when it's a little harder. So I've already written out the answers, so I've got them covered up here for a second. But to find the domain, again, so here's my graph. It's the square root of x minus 4. So again, I'm thinking the first x coordinate that ever gets used on my graph is the number 4. Kind of another way I think about it is, so domain has to do with x values. I kind of just move my pen or pencil, I hold it up and down and just move it left to right. And I think, when do I start hitting the graph? Well, the first place I'm going to hit the graph is at positive 4, including that. And then I'm going to keep touching it forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever, which means the domain will start at positive 4 and continue forever. So in interval notation, we simply write that as 4 to infinity, inclusive, so we use brackets. To do the range, I do the same thing, just with the y values. So if I were to move my pen, I'm still up and down this time. I'm not touching, not touching, not touching. The smallest y value that I ever hit would be at 0. And then I'm always touching, always touching, always touching, always touching. So again, you have to think about, too, what's going on. As x gets arbitrarily large, y will get big, too. So this graph actually keeps increasing forever and ever and ever as you move up and to the right. So the smallest value is 0, and then it goes on forever and ever, so we would say the range is simply 0 to infinity. Okay, so let's do the same thing here on a couple more. So this time we've kind of got a half a parabola. But again, to find the domain, I just move my pen left to right, not touching, not touching, not touching, not touching. At the y-axis, or correspondingly x equals 0, I'm still not touching.